I've got three amazing women with me today. And those who are just signing in, let me know where you're signing in from, what city, what state, what country. We want to hear from you. We want to interact with you, so feel free and ask questions, give us your feedback. And those of you who do have a certification through SHRM, you will get one PDC for participating and being involved with this event today. So thank you very much. And I want to run through my guests today. So running on the top left hand of my screen, I have Miss Stacy Dorsey. She is the VP and Chief Workforce Officer at Parkland Hospital, located in the Dallas-Fort Worth area here in good old Texas. And we also have, top right-hand corner, is Laura Matthews. She is the Physician Organization Administrator for Houston Methodist, also located in Texas, but in Houston. And we also have Miss Fareen Fazal at the bottom. She is the VP of HR Business Partners at Memorial Hermann Health System, also located in Houston. But you know, I think you will find as we have this discussion, the things that they're facing are the same things you're probably facing where you are. So without further ado, thank you for joining the show. First of all, Stacy, thank you.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited about the discussion today.
Me too. And you as well, Laura.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
And Fareen, thank you.
Thank you, Rollis, and thank you to this group. I'm excited to have some in-depth conversation today.
Absolutely. We've got lots of topics to cover. And the first thing that I have on my list, which is, I know a lot of folks are facing this all over the country, is the subject about retention and attrition. And so, Fareen, would you like to start us off with that about retention and attrition?
Sure. So for those of you who may not know, Memorial Hermann, we've got a little over 29,000 employees in Houston, and we've got a number of community hospital campuses. We've got an academic medical center, and we've got a number of primary care and specialty care clinics across the Houston area. And one thing that we do on a monthly basis in each of our monthly operating reviews is review our turnover rate by location, but also by job. And we've noticed in the last year that we're seeing kind of an uptick in that turnover, mostly because people just don't know what to expect, right? The fear of unknown, their kids might be home from school. The healthcare environment is just so much more stressful than it's been in the past. And so as they try to balance taking care of their families and keeping their jobs, unfortunately, people are choosing to, maybe leave their work environment, maybe go down to supplemental status or PRN status just so that they can find what they need to do to help take care of their family. And so we've seen an uptick in turnover. And what we've been trying to do is say, we understand that these are challenging times. We don't want to lose you, but if you feel like you need to take the time and our current kind of flexible options don't work, then take what you need, and we'd love for you to come back, right? We'd love for you to join us when the time is right. We want to stay connected. And that's what you have to do. You have to support your community. You have to support your workforce. And so it's definitely something that we're learning a little differently through COVID, is how do we remain flexible? How do we understand what our workforce needs? But sometimes, people have to do what's right for their family, but we want to be there when they're ready to come back. So. Absolutely.
And Laura, I know that you had something to say about this subject as well.
Yeah, we're all facing, a lot of the same issues that Fareen did. Houston Methodist. So I actually am in the physician organization. We, at the end of this year, will have close to 1,000 employed physicians, a little over 4,000 employees throughout the physician organization, not to mention, growing 26 to 27,000 within our total workforce across Houston. I think we've seen it on a lot of different sides. I think at the beginning of COVID, which seems like forever ago, we were very, very lenient and gracious. We were very fortunate. We did not have to lay off one individual. We created our own internal labor pools. And then as we started to realize this is going to be kind of the new norm, we still continue to do everything that we can, similar to Memorial Hermann and probably a lot of others, to give our employees flexibility but we've also really focused a lot on the retention piece as well. There's been multiple bonuses given out to our frontline providers, which I think has been so incredibly important. Those that have been day in, day out, kind of risking their own lives and caring for the sickest of the sickest patients, along with what we're experiencing right now with these mega vaccine sites. It's a lot of work for everybody that's being put into them. On an average day or average week, we can give up to 50,000 vaccinations, which takes the Army together.
Wow.
So those are things that we're really trying to, recognize and reward our current employees and try to keep them engaged and not forget about those that aren't working on the front line, but yet that are in the clinics. Because I think across the board, it takes everyone to really be able to, to chip in to make these organizations work right now. But, our biggest turnover areas during the height of COVID, we were losing some of our nurses to go to travel positions, across California. We're offering, $10,000 a week, which, we just, of course, couldn't compete with. We try to just throughout COVID to really appreciate our employees. Dr. Dorsey with the vaccine, he's very present on the front line. So I think, a lot of watching what your most senior leadership does really keeps our workforce engaged.
Absolutely. And from your perspective, Stacy, what are you seeing up in the area where you are?
Yeah, absolutely. And Dallas is no different than Houston, as you would imagine. To say that COVID was a disruptor in our market would be a huge understatement. So I started right at a year ago at Parkland. So I came right as COVID was starting. So I haven't actually experienced Parkland without COVID yet.
Oh, wow.
And I probably never will. But I will agree with my peers here. The challenges that we have run into with retaining is that market disruption. So we have, agencies were competing for staff at a much higher level. And we really had to look at it holistically when we look at our employee retention. So we had to do quick analysis on our pay structures. Are we paying right? We had to look at the wellness of our nurses. Are they getting burnt out? And are we providing them wellness opportunities and giving them places to go? And we also had a huge outreach, which you guys probably did too, from our community. And so being able to utilize some of those services like places to wash their clothes and bringing food in on a consistent basis and seeing recognition on an ongoing basis from the community really did help to keep the staff engaged in the mission of Parkland and what we were trying to accomplish. So there were so many different avenues that were different than the way that we've approached retention before. In addition to having to, as HRs, take a step back and say, what do our employees need? Whether it's more flexibility, whether it's childcare we weren't providing, whether it was a different kind of childcare, like just a place for your kids to go during the day to get on a computer to do their schooling so that you could come to work. So we had to look at it from a different perspective, but I think the biggest impact is we had to move fast. We had to get things done fast, things that we would normally take more time thinking through. We had to make decisions really quickly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and Rollis, I could just add to what Stacy mentioned. It was really important to HR folks, I know across the country, but more so here, as we're talking, is to take that whole approach, not just one aspect. I think many people thought, well, does HR need to really be involved in that? And at the end of the day, it is, you have to do the right thing for your workforce, right? If that meant looking at kind of meditation opportunities, wellness opportunities, childcare opportunities, we looked at we got a subscription for all of our employees to the Headspace app.
Oh, nice.
Right? Because people have a hard time getting to sleep at night, turning their minds off so that they could just rest and be ready for the next day. Not only are you stressed about work, you're stressed about your family. And so how do you just get a good power nap sometimes, right? You start meetings just having a few moments of mindfulness because you have to just get back and focus on what's at hand. because there's too many competing priorities and too many disruptors, to Stacy's point. And so, I think that it didn't matter what role you played in any organization, if you were HR, administration, nursing, you held on to everyone in your organization and you did what's right for yourself, for your peer, for your whole family. And so I can say that, usually things that have a lot of red tape did not exist anymore, right? We got past that really quickly. Right. It's scary to think how we're going to go back to not having having red tape to make decisions, but it was incredible how people just pulled together and still are, right? COVID's not done. There's still a good number of patients in our hospitals, but you have to think about the whole individual, not just one aspect of it.
Yeah, that's a great point.
I think you raised a really good point, and you just mentioned it, our new normal, right? So I feel like we're moving into this stage, and it's not post-COVID because COVID's here to stay, but what does it look like now that we have to decide what red tape do we have moving forward? What was okay to go away, and how do we take some of the programs that we implemented very quickly and make them more long-term solutions? But that's kind of where we are right now, is taking a little bit of a step back and going, okay, everything we did over this last year, what do we keep doing? What do we stop doing? What do we need to do a little bit differently? Because maybe we did it too fast and we need to make some changes. But all of that related to retaining our staff and engaging our staff is something we talk about every day.
Yeah, absolutely. Laura, you're going to say something. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think there was one thing that was really interesting, or at least to me in the beginning, and it's still happening, but when we were all trying to figure out, like, how do we deal with this? The Texas TMC, it's one of the largest medical centers really in the world. And, you have all the major players kind of here, and not that we don't work collaboratively, but we didn't always have that opportunity to really collaborate for best practices at the CHRO, the highest levels. And that was one thing that, our CHRO, Carol Hackett, and Lori Knowles, and several of the other, CHROs really got together and had a daily call to talk about how do we take care of healthcare workers in general. Of course, you always want to care about those that work for yourself, but I think when you look at the healthcare workers across the United States, even it's a different time for them. Recognizing them even with some of the smallest things really help them get through their day. We created some of our psychologists and neuropsychologists that, we want to figure out how we can give back to our employees, and started a kind of a we care type system to where, they would take one-on-one kind of counseling calls or such for any of our employees, 24 hours a day, almost 7 days a week. And that was such a relief to some of our really for everybody. Just because you're not on the front lines doesn't mean necessarily that you're not suffering in some which way. So I think that's always something else that you had to think about, is the impact that COVID even had on family members, or, the impact that you may have lost a coworker or lost a family member and had not really had that opportunity to grieve like normal processes. So I think it is going back to, I think what was said earlier, really looking at it from a holistic standpoint and saying, sometimes we were just so focused on metrics and productivity and, a lot of the different things, but now really looking at how can we take care of our workforce like we never have.
Yeah, let me just check in with the audience here and see what they're thinking of what you're saying so far. Well, it looks like they like it, so that's good. Let me look at a couple of comments here. We have Henry Ware, good friend. Henry, good to see you. He's coming in from Houston. We have Carrie Ann Gallagher coming in from Massachusetts. Thank you for being here. Brian Hudson from St. Petersburg, Florida. Thank you for being here. He says, great topic. So those who are watching, continue to let us know where you're signing in from. And also feel free and give us your feedback. What is your take on some of the things that we're talking about? And please give us any questions that you have throughout the discussion. We'll tackle those as we can. I do want to move on to our next topic in the interest of time. But before we do that, I want to ask you a question, a would you rather question. You ready? Okay.
Maybe.
Who wants to take this one first? It'll be fun. It'll be fun. This is nothing bad. It's nothing crazy. Who wants to take it? Laura, you want to take it? Okay, she's brave.
Yeah.
Would you rather be temporarily invisible or temporarily invincible?
Oh wow. probably rather be invisible.
Okay, why is that?
I don't know. Why not?
Okay, so you want to be invisible. Does anyone want to be invincible? Either Fareen or Stacy. And those are the comments too. Let me know what you're thinking.
Invincible.
What's that?
I think I'd like to be invincible sometimes, right? You just like take it all on, take on the world.
I love it. Yes, very good. Okay, well, thanks for stepping out of the box. I know it's not normal to feel those kind of questions, but thank you for being a good sport. Okay, so let's go.
Everybody wants to be a spy on the wall and listen to things at times. I'm not going to lie.
Exactly.
Right. Okay, so we're going to go to our next one here, which is burnout. So this is definitely becoming more and more of an issue, is burnout. And by the way, before we just move on, there's a couple other comments that just came in. Candy, Dr. Candace Campbell, thank you for coming in from DC area, and Michelle Miranda from Sacramento, California. So thank you very much. Okay, so let's start off with you, Stacy, on no, actually this is more Laura's topic first. And Stacy, your big topic is going to be staffing and vaccinations. I haven't forgotten that. So Laura, for you, burnout. What you got for me?
I think burnout, something has been such the buzzword for a long time, really taking care of our providers. And I mean, I have always said, we need a burnout committee even for HR, because it happens everywhere. I think, there's so much going on right now, and there's so much that you take on for your organization, but also personally, that you've really had to take time to address that. We have a phenomenal burnout committee here, at Houston Methodist, a whole division that has millions of dollars committed to it. That we've seen more and more involvement, and we've really pushed things out similar to Fareen and Memorial Hermann, to really take, we call it what's good here. And, it's reprogramming your mind to think positivity, think of things that you're grateful for. Our spiritual care division has been phenomenal at just, more resources, even though they can't be there with you, if they'll offer virtual prayer, they'll, if there's something that you need to, talk to them one-on-one. We've done a lot also with our music therapists. And that's, I think that's something that studies have shown music has,
yes.
So they put together, we actually have like a Methodist choir now that, you can watch them sing.
Oh, wow.
You almost have like a YouTube channel, all different kinds of things from the performing arts.
Have you joined that? Have you joined that, Laura?
So it's sometimes, I'm sorry?
Have you joined?
Oh God, no. That would be horrible. But no, there's like some real talent in this group. But it's all the different things that, even though we don't get to go to the gym anymore, to relieve that stress and such, we've done things. We've really had to create different virtual opportunities. And that's really goes back to taking care of yourself, not just physically, but also mentally. I think we're going to come out of this pandemic with more and more need for behavioral health. So I think it's really time to, get all of us involved more in behavioral health and, make those resources available, to our employees. Because, even though you can say you're Superman, COVID's had an effect on everybody in some which way.
Absolutely. And for that, I think that this is what you guys deserve for doing that with the music. I like that. That's good. Very good. So what are your thoughts on this, Fareen?
As Laura was talking, I was thinking, she's right. I mean, burnout's been a topic that we've been hearing a lot about for years, but it means something different today. It's not, usually it's just kind of like physical, right? You're running around all the time. When you're like in the office, you're meeting to meeting, campus to campus, running around, patients, the units. But now it feels it's more mental burnout, right? The having to be kind of, we always talk about thinking outside the box, and there is no box anymore, right? We're trying to figure things out as they come to us. And so your mental agility is really feeling strained because you're having to just do things you haven't done before. The pressure of wanting to make sure people are okay, like to do your part, right? The healthcare workers that are on those units taking care of patients, not just being their caregiver, but being their family member, being their spouse, right? Our chaplaincy services, I mean, gosh, they're angels on earth for what they've been doing for our employees and for our patients, because they haven't been able to have their family members near them. And so that's really, it's heavy on your mind. It's heavy just on trying to figure out what more you can do. But I think people's creativity has really shined, between music therapy, I think pet therapy, having, the animals in the hospital just going around, and you just see people, you can't see their face, but you can see their eyes just open up, and they've got like a twinkle because they get a memory, right, of playing with an animal or having someone there. I think looking at creative ways to have fun with your teams. We had an event once where you can't really keep your kids out of the camera, right? There's a camera on and they're like, we need to be there.
Right.
And so we had an event where for our employees, their kids could come and like play an instrument, right, on the screen in a meeting. And so that was fun. They got to show off and see mom and dad's friends at work.
Nice.
So you just kind of pull everyone in to say, nothing's really normal anymore. So how do you just kind of decompress your mind and take the mental, just take a mental break, for lack of a better word.
I love that point you made about there is no box. Very good. That's a clip, editors. Yes, thank you very much. Okay, so let's talk about staffing. And you know what, before we do that, I want to there's quite a few more comments that came in. We have Michelle Miranda. She said, perfect topic, top of mind for my organization. I believe that's when you were talking, Laura. And then let's see, Sabbath Akin. She says, great topic. Hello from Spherian. Not sure where that is. Let us know where that is, Sabbath. Okay. And then also, Michelle says, burnout occurring for remote workers adjusting to new work environment, more distractions, kids, pets, can be difficult to stay focused, need to emphasize self-care. Yeah, nice.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I would say, some of our executives, not all of them, were not so for the work from home initially because it's so different than what we've been doing. But I think for me, I can speak for myself, when I'm working at home, like I never stop. It's like I almost have to come into the office, or I'm okay, about to eat dinner. Okay, let me just work on this. So you have this like extended work day that it just, I think we see a lot of that. And it's, some of us are like, well, it's driving productivity. But on the other side, it's going back to your distractions or, those individuals that are alone. I think that's been a lot of the hardest part that we've seen, even, or people that have reached out to say, I need to come back to the office because I'm just not able to stay at home by myself. I mean, I'm becoming depressed, or I'm becoming, I can't do it anymore. So, we've been able to find those ways to have that balance of even those divisions that were asked to completely work off site to allow some to come back in. Because I think you've got to, I couldn't imagine not having a support system, which there's so many individuals that are going through that right now. So I think that your work is sometimes your family. And so, I think that's really something that we've had to really be cognizant as well.
That's a great point.
Yeah, and to Brett's point, I really appreciated those employees that have said that they need something else. They need the help, right? We make an assumption that if you're working remote or working from home, it's easy. It's definitely not easy, right? In the beginning, it was fun. And you're like, oh yes, I can wear leggings all the time. But you're still having to be on. You're still having to get work done. And for those individuals who struggle with it and raised their hand and said, this isn't really working for me. It was in the beginning, but I need some type of hybrid approach, right? I really applaud them, because that helped us to say it's not one size fits all, right?
Absolutely.
It really just kind of depends on the function that you're doing, the role that you have, the environment that you're in. And so I like knowing that people can reach out and say, this just isn't working. Can we try something different?
I remember in a past panel that we had with Felicia Miller from Parkland, as well as Omar Reed from Harris Health and Leslie Robertson from the Harris Center. And I believe it was Omar and Felicia who both said that at first they weren't sure what they knew about this whole remote thing. How are we going to be able to work this? But once we got into it, it's like, okay, I'm sold now. This is good. This is working. And I remember, to your point earlier, Laura, about Houston Methodist, Carol, as well as Memorial Hermann, Lori, and Shabu from MD Anderson. They were having these daily calls, and I've had the opportunity to interview them a couple of times. In fact, they're going to come back on the end of next month, by the way, those of you who are watching. I think it's April 29th. We're going to have the three of those back on. But they had a great working relationship, you could tell. Whereas maybe in the past, they didn't get a chance to work together as much. But now they have a very, very, very tight-knit working arrangement between them, sharing best practices and everything, which I thought was admirable. And Omar and Felicia also mentioned the same thing, that they had been communicating. I know since then, them as well as Leslie have also been communicating. So, Stacy, I want to move to your point about staffing, current and future. What are your thoughts on that topic of future staffing as well as what we're working through currently?
Yeah, so I think, it's been top of mind for everyone. To your point, one of the great things that I've had the opportunity to be part of is every week, the regional hospitals get together, CNOs and HR folks, and do a roundtable and just talk about staffing. And so where previously I think we were all kind of in our own little bubble and we're competing against each other, it was great to see that everyone come together and talk about how do we work together to make sure that we all have the staff we need to meet the needs of the community. And so it really, as you were just mentioning, it aligns with the message from Felicia, and that was a separate group where we started to come together where maybe we hadn't taken the time to come together before. And overcoming staffing challenges. And I think one of the biggest challenges we have right now is the market has shifted. It's changed. And we're still trying to figure out what that looks like. And so it sounds crazy after this last year, but there is a mindset to keep doing things the way we've done them, right? And we've got to think differently about how we staff, even our staffing to our budget, because COVID patients have impacted, the census within the hospitals. We're almost having to completely rethink the way that we staff the hospital and how we find staff and how we compete for staff. So I think that's something that's top of mind and in every leadership meeting that we have going on right now at Parkland.
Yeah, so that's great thoughts. Did you want to add to that, Laura? I see you shaking your head there.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all in the same boat with a lot of these things, but, I can speak to it a little bit more from even an outpatient standpoint. We were probably first, we'd been working on virtual care for quite some time. So when COVID hit, we were able to get about 600 physicians over seeing virtual patients almost like within a week or so. This is a big project that all of us had been working on.
That's awesome.
So now some of them like that. And, now that insurance has changed, that we can get reimbursed and, hopefully it'll stay that way. But, then it really starts to think about how do you, when you build out clinics, if you had a really productive physician that needed 3 clinic rooms and now they're seeing virtual 3 days a week, do you still need those 3 exam rooms? And could you put another physician in there? Or, your staff, do you need that 4 front desk people that maybe they're doing some things from home now? So it's looking at some of the positions and not doing away with anyone because we're growing so much, we need everybody, but maybe doing some look at how to work more efficiently. I think COVID, if anything, has taught us all how to be more efficient in some areas. And, really, we've had an opportunity to really cross-train individuals. But, I think I've had to look at COVID myself and say, what good is coming out of this, right? Because, it's easy to get bogged down in the media and just everything that's going on. But how do we really take some of the best practices that we've learned through COVID and now implemented them for future staffing or for future, opportunities throughout all the different, areas within the hospital?
Yeah, absolutely.
If I could add one thing, Rollis,
of course.
As Stacy and Laura were talking about staffing, one of the things that popped into my mind that we've been talking about a lot lately is just these future competencies and future skills that we need to really plan for, that we haven't had a need for in the past, right? So to Laura's point, this whole like virtual medicine, telemedicine, teaching our physicians how that works. I mean, that's not a skill set or a competency that you likely learned in medical school, but it's something that we need to teach them. Same with our workforce. I think the other piece is more so just kind of navigation skills, right? How do you navigate some of these new scenarios and complex situations? So it's not like traditional skills anymore that we're having to kind of teach these days, but looking at the future of the workforce and saying, how are we going to do work differently? And I'm not just talking about like remote work, but doing work differently and using skill sets and competencies that you traditionally didn't see in healthcare. But then we have to take a more kind of broader approach to looking at that and figuring out how do we kind of weave that through our like organizational learning and just kind of competency related work.
That's excellent. And I want to ask those who are watching, those in the comments, since I know that those of you are from all over the country, let us know what's going on in your neck of the woods, as we would say here in Texas. Let us know, are you hearing some similarities? Are there things you're doing that's differently? Please share it with our community here as we go through this discussion, because I think we can all help each other. Rising tide lifts all boats, right? I'm looking at some of the comments here. I see that Brian says the mental burnout is a slow drip that can sneak up on you. The frog warm water syndrome. Oh, yes. We have seen a huge increase in our employee assist EAP programs. And hi, Casey. Casey's here too. That's a good point about, I remember Quint yesterday when I interviewed him. He said that where it's working, if you're connected with your employees, is if you see the EAP usage go up. Would you guys agree with that? And what have you guys seen? Go ahead, Stacy. I see Stacy look like she's going to say something.
I was going to say absolutely. Seeing that usage go up is important, especially in these times. And I think it was said earlier, but there's always been the concept of burnout, but the definition I think has changed over the last year. And so one of the things that's really important in this category is just continuing to stay connected to the employees and ask them what they need. And providing all different avenues for them to get that, whether it's webinars, whether it's one-on-one sessions and access to that, whether it's the EAP, whether it's groups coming together in a social distancing manner to allow them to be part of a community and not feel so isolated. But it seems to be evolving over the year. And so I think that it's really important to see the numbers go up with the EAP, but also to continually stay in contact with your employees. We did surveys, we reported out to leaders on those surveys. We targeted departments that had high numbers in the surveys to make sure that they knew what they had access to so they could communicate that to their employees. So from an HR perspective, it's just really important to make sure that we're constantly communicating what's available to not just the employees, but our leaders and helping them to make sure they know what resources are available to their employees. And I think all that does increase the use of these programs. So.
And
we've implemented.
Laura, just for a second, I want you to answer, but just 1 second. I wanted you, if you can, for those who aren't familiar with the term EAP, just in case they're not in HR or they're not in our country, they may not know what EAP is. So if you could explain that, and then go ahead and please offer your answer. Thank you so much. Laura.
Okay.
Yes.
So EAP is an employee assistance program. So oftentimes there's courses that you can take. There's things that you can read. Often they'll provide, if you need to see a counselor, that will provide. That's one thing that Methodist did right at the beginning of COVID. We increased our number of EAP visits that are free to our employees to 10. And that was, incredibly helpful. We've seen definitely an uptick. And another thing that we do on a daily basis is send out an email that's, from our HR hub, which is kind of where all of the, all employee emails come from that's taking care of you. So in that daily email, there's, we reiterate the different resources. There's usually a daily prayer. There's different things. There's good news of things too. So, you always, I think as an employee, it's about realizing there's something coming out every day and you kind of get used to it. But we've had a lot of really good feedback on that, of just reminding people of the resources and, putting them up on Matty boards and, really rounding on, some of the floors, because not everybody has the luxury of being attached to a computer all day. So, I think it's really looking at the workforce and how do we get that message across to everybody so they do know, the resources that they do have available.
Absolutely.
I think that's been one of the good things to come out of this. If we start kind of making a list of some positives that happened due to COVID, I think a lot of HR teams will say we have a number of programs available, but people didn't really take advantage of it, right? How many actually used Bright Horizons or childcare or employee assistance or financial advising services? But during this, when people didn't know where to go or who to talk to, and lots of organizations, to Laura's point, were sending out, don't forget, we have this available. Here's a link to get to this a little more quickly. More and more employees and their families started to utilize these resources and said, oh, wow, this is actually pretty good. I can get some benefit, not just now, but after COVID as well. So I think knowing that you have options and resources and having people talk about using it, so it's not just out there, but someone I know used it and it worked really well for them. We started to also, I'm sure many other organizations did too, is having like leadership town halls. So we were having them weekly with our CEO, and whereas some may say, I see my CEO, once in a while, now they were seeing him every week, and he was authentic. He was answering the hard questions live. He was kind of highlighting what we're doing and what we're still trying to figure out, what options people have. And, if we figure out a better way, we'll talk about it the following week. And so I think that was also another way just to bring people together, to say, we may not know everything, but we're certainly learning from each other, and we move quickly, right? So if we need to change something, let's change it so that it's beneficial. And he would highlight utilizing programs, or, call on a member of his leadership team to say, have you tried this? What's going on? And so it felt really, it felt real, it felt authentic, and it just felt like you were one big family trying to deal with this together versus on your own.
I like that. I want to ask you guys a question. I want to ask the folks who are watching a question in the comments. So what is one thing before COVID that you didn't really notice as much, but since then you've actually noticed it? Maybe it's in your surroundings, maybe it's in your neighborhood, maybe it's just somewhere in your life. You just didn't really notice it, and now you appreciate it more. Who wants to go first on that? In the comments, I want you to answer too, who are watching. Same thing. Because I like what Fareen said earlier about, how some positives that have come out of this. That's what's one of the things that stand out for either one of you.
For me, I think it's brought a lot of our leadership teams closer together. You're huge, or we all work for huge organizations. And I mean, you always had your HR teams that would work together, your administrators that would work together, and, the executives. But now you see a lot more town halls that are all employees, or, the entire physician organization. We're doing more hearing from our leaders, and it takes an army. It doesn't, there's no way that one person or one group of people can do everything that's been having to be done during COVID. So, and then I think the other thing is the amount of appreciation. I think we always have been like, oh, thank you for doing that, or great job. But it's really, it's almost like, it's just fascinating. Dr. Boom is probably one of the most genuine leaders that I have ever, I could imagine not working with him. He will think all the way down to, the lowest of our level employees. And, that means so much to get we have a Bravo card, or, some of the little things.
Nice.
from your CEO that sometimes you would just be intimidated to even go talk to. So I think the amount of just true appreciation that we all have for each other has really inspired me, if anything.
Oh, very good. Fareen?
I think from my perspective, we are much more aligned than we thought we were. I think prior to COVID, we worked in our silos, at the large organization that like we have. It was really easy to point fingers, right? To say, oh, folks who sit at the corporate office, or they don't understand what we're going through and how to support us. And during COVID, you realize that everyone's on the same page, right? Infection prevention, you may not have known who they were before, but you definitely know now.
Exactly.
Right? You have a great level of respect for their guidance, their protocols, their posters, all their information, the lab teams, right? The quality teams, those kind of support functions that support everyone. We're all in it together. And so you're always trying to drive that message in a large organization that you don't want people to work in silos, but those, just really just kind of disappeared over time, right? It didn't matter where you sat, who you were, what you did, but we were all going in the same direction and helping each other out. So I think some of those functions that have been sitting in the shadows got a chance to shine, and people are like, oh yeah, we're working on the same thing here. So I've really enjoyed seeing that for sure.
That's a great point. In fact, if you've got an infection control doctor who you think would love to be on the show, please refer them my way, because I'd love to be able to interview some of those folks. That'd be great. Stacy, you had something you wanted to say?
Yeah, so I would just add, piggyback on what they've already said. I agree. Being new to Parkland, I don't know what it was like before, but I can tell you the visibility of leaders during this time has been amazing. Their time in the hospital, understanding the weekly town halls with all of the staff, and the hundreds of questions that were coming in through the virtual chats for people. I think that visibility was there, and to see how authentic they are. And I hope Felicia doesn't mind me sharing this, but even during the recent storm here in Dallas, where, we lost power, she was down in the linens department helping out. And so I just felt like it has been, we're all in this together. And it doesn't matter what job needs done, we're here to do it. We have the labor pools. So I think one of the things that has helped people have appreciation for other folks' jobs are those labor pools, because people are, like, for example, as HR folks, we're working in the vaccine clinics, our drive-through vaccine clinics, and we're learning what it's like to stand out there, in the cold, in the weather, whatever it might be. So you have a greater appreciation as a support department in what folks are doing and what role they play in the organization. And so I think not only the behind the scenes departments are more recognized, but at the same time, as support departments, I think we have a better understanding of the operations of the hospital and how they work, because we've been so embedded in them in the last year.
And who was that you said was down in the laundry?
Felicia Miller.
Oh, Felicia, my friend. Awesome. Okay, I got to do with that. There we go. Thank you, Felicia. That was awesome. Okay. And I have another question for you now. I want to just imagine here, if you had the power to go back to January of 2020, make sure I got my years right, January 2020, with all the knowledge that you have right now, to be able to share all of that with your organization, or the ability to see 1 year from now in the future for your organization and perhaps equip them with that knowledge, which one would you go with?
Wow. I think I'd go a year from now.
Okay. Why's that?
Yeah. I think it would be amazing to see what our new normal is. I know we've been through a lot in the last year, but it feels like it was a moment in time, but it's completely changed. Like other events in history have changed who we are and who we're going to become. And I think in the next year, we're going to figure out what that looks like. But I think to me, it's exciting would be exciting to be able to look back at that and see, what it looks like now. Like, what is that new normal? What is it? How is it different? And if you'll remember, I was talking to my kids during this, and we were talking about moments in time that changed history, and how when we were young, we could walk up, to the gate at the airport and, greet people as they were coming off the plane, right?
Right.
And they'd never experienced that. They think that's crazy. And so during this whole conversation, we've been talking about when they look back, what are they going to say? That was crazy. Like, I can't believe you guys did that back then. And so we've tried to figure out what those would be. So I would definitely love to be a year in the future and and be able to look back.
Very cool. I like the comments.
I agree.
Please answer as well. Okay, so Laura, you agree. How about you, Fareen? Would you agree, or would you go the other way?
I think I'd go the other way.
Okay.
There was so much anxiety and stress when all of this really started to come our way back then. And I wish, I could have offered more quickly some support and ideas and ways to kind of redeploy ourselves differently. Looking ahead in the future, I'd like to do that too, but I also feel like kind of going through this experience and feeling the pressure and feeling the tension has also helped me to be more thoughtful, more inclusive, just with my thought processes and how we just need to look at work differently and look at our teams differently and support our leaders. So I wish I could have, I take the previous and just say, I wish I could have been more prepared then. I think we were just a little naive. So.
I like that. That's good. So in the comments, I've got some more feedback here. Dr. Candy Campbell, she says, positive system changes, getting serious attention, and grassroots comments listened to. Would y'all agree with that? Yeah, I see some heads shaking there. And then Casey said, great opportunity to improve our practice. He says, yes, the staff love to see you in the COVID rooms with them, helping care for the patients and getting their input for standard work processes. Oh, very good. Any comments on that before I move to my next topic?
I would say exactly. I would agree with that I think there was more listening because no one felt like they had the answers. So I think it was a great opportunity where as leaders, we were in the same boat as staff, and we wanted to hear whatever solution, might be out there to have those conversations. So I think people were more open-minded. And I do think those grassroots efforts of providing feedback and input, they were just heard maybe better than they ever have been before, because everyone wanted to take in every idea and vet that and see if it was something that could either help our patients, our employees, or our community.
Ooh, I like that one. That's a clip right there. I love that about, what you said about the part where they were willing to listen because they didn't think they already had the answers, and having an open mind. Oh, that's golden. I love it. Okay. All right. So our next topic is vaccinations. Let's talk about vaccinations for a little bit. It has to be really short because we still want to talk about leadership. Okay, so it has to be really short. So who wants to go first on vaccination? I think it was you, Stacy, right?
Yeah, and we can absolutely keep this one short. I thought it's very top of mind for us right now, not only because we are trying to put the infrastructure in place for ongoing helping the community, but also for our staff, right? So there's that conversation about the virtual world versus people coming back to work. Can we now get together and not have to wear our masks? And so this conversation comes up constantly right now in our with our employees about what's next. And then the next piece is how do we continue to get our staff vaccinated? And how do we continue to get that message out there and increase those numbers both within the hospital and outside of the hospital? And so that has been a major topic. And how can we help in HR to make that happen?
Oh, good point. Laura, how about you?
Yeah, Houston Methodist was I think named one of the big hubs here in Houston. And so we've been living and breathing vaccines now for seems like forever, but it's so rewarding. And talking about front lines, on one of our mega events, Dr. Boone literally sat and gave shots out to the community. He said he told me, I was only going to plan to do a few and ended up doing an entire 8 hours because I had so much fun doing it. Wow. So, that to me makes that's just awesome. We also were able to really, we're in the process of giving every employee who is fully vaccinated, or if they have a health condition, obviously a religious exemption, a $500 bonus, because it was that important to us to ensure that our employees, number one, took it serious, and that they were, were getting their vaccines. So that was a huge win for us. And so I think now we're close to about 99%, vaccinated across the organization.
What?
I think that's been, I could be off by a few numbers. Don't get me wrong.
Even if you are, that's still high.
You start involving. That's not chump change. $500 is a lot of money. So giving that to a lot of people, they're like, absolutely. And so, and I think when you have top leaders that are just so passionate about it and they see it, they want to follow. They know that it's important. So, I think it's definitely a group effort.
Yeah, so the part about Dr. Boom helping for the 8 hours, and the part about being at 99% vaccinated, you get that. That's amazing, because I'm talking with CNOs all over the country, and I'm hearing 60%, 70%, 80%.
I could be wrong. Yeah. I may have to check my numbers, but I thought that's what I saw amazing. In the last count.
No, hey, look, we're not throwing any shade on it. We're happy for you. That's amazing.
Yeah, I just misrepresent, but I know that it was really, really high.
Anything above 80 is really good based on what I'm based on what I'm hearing. It's 80, over 80 is extremely good. So that's very good. Casey says, he says, fun to have other duties as assigned to run our vaccine clinics in the community and with the staff. I think that term's been used a lot the past year, right? As well as maintain the day job. He's got some little laughing emojis. That's awesome. Okay, let's go to our last topic for the day, which is leadership. We want to make sure we hit leadership during COVID. And I think, Fareen, were you going to start us off with that one? Was that one of yours?
Sure. Okay. Yeah. I think leadership at any given point is important, right? And a good leader is someone that can really kind of help guide a team, not necessarily kind of stand in front and take all the credit, right? But really lift out the best qualities out of our individuals, help them to really kind of demonstrate their strengths, but also help them work through development areas. And I think what COVID did for many of our leaders is it highlighted, those circumstances where they really shined, but also highlighted where they still had some opportunities to really just improve. You don't always have these hugely stressful situations like a pandemic to really test you. And so I think that's what COVID offered. It offered us an ability to kind of really look at ourselves as leaders and to look at our leaders to say, what do we still need to work on to kind of help our teams a little bit more? Because we certainly don't know everything, and we really had to kind of either shoot from the hip or figure out a new way of working. But we kind of bypassed one of our annual talent review cycles during COVID. I'm sure many organizations did the same thing with just pushing initiatives down to a later point in time. But when we restarted those conversations, there was so much more dialogue around where people felt like, hey, I could have done this better. I'd really like to learn how to have these hard conversations. But we also found that leaders who had been really technically sound earlier in their career and then moved into leadership, they were going back into the front line, right? They were working side by side with their teams. They were rolling up their sleeves. They were, going through competency training again. And you saw some excitement from them to say, I can actually do something else, right? I can help my team rather than just standing on the sidelines and being a cheerleader, that I could get back in there and do something. And so I feel like for our technical or clinical leaders, it was an exciting time for them to get back into the trenches a little bit. So I think leadership has had a challenging time, but I think there were real moments of just excitement and joy that you still kind of had it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Laura.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of second a lot of what Fareen just said. One of the things that we've really had to work with some of our newer managers is how do you lead a remote workforce? That's not easy for the most seasoned of manager. Looking at ways to monitor productivity, to have crucial conversations. It's very different when you have someone sitting right there in front of you versus connecting like this over some sort of a media. We've really pushed Teams, though. The whole organization, almost, we barely even use email anymore. Teams is kind of the mode of conversation. So I think we've tried to look at all different types of resources that we can give our leaders to, be more efficient or feel more comfortable. Our organizational department has been amazing with some different training courses. And then kind of back to what Fareen said, I think so many of our leaders have just gone back to the trenches and said, I can do this. I'm willing to help you. Different things that they can do has really kind of humanized them, I think, some. And so I think that's everything that, you can hope to get out of a good leader. And I did want to correct, we're at 85%. Sorry.
Which is still amazing.
Still
will kill me if I'm saying the wrong things.
85 is still.
I don't want to go on that record.
85 is still amazing. So yeah. Go ahead, Stacy.
But not quite as much as I always think high.
It'll eventually be 99%. How about that? Go ahead, Stacy.
So I was going to say on leadership, I would second everything that's been said, but there were two things that definitely stand out to me. One is the last year has really put a lot of stress on where our gaps might be in leadership, right? So one of the HR components that I think our learning and development team has done a wonderful job at is, as we saw where those gaps were, creating tools and resources for leaders to utilize, because, in a normal day-to-day, we may say, we need to get them that training. We need to help them with this. But we had to move fast and get our leaders some more support because we saw those gaps. And then the second piece is, not only did our leaders do exactly what you said, they really got in the trenches and helped out. We also had the opportunity, because we had to create whole infrastructures for vaccine clinics and testing sites, to give people opportunities to step up into leadership roles. And that then went back to learning and development to put together some, workforce development programs and how do we support those folks as they stepped up. But it really did highlight people that maybe weren't in true, by definition, leadership roles, but stepped up as leaders in the organization. And so it really highlighted their skills as leaders. And again, as we look at going into the new normal, we're trying to figure out how do we make sure that those that were highlighted continue to be highlighted and continue to get the growth and development that they need moving forward. So I think that's really important.
Stacy, I think that was like such a spot on comment, because that's through our vaccine effort. We've seen, I can't even name how many people that aren't your traditional I manage people, but they are probably some of our strongest leaders that we've had through this entire kind of process. That's a very good.
People have really stepped up to help the community and take these informal leadership roles as well as formal leadership roles. So spot on, yeah.
So I think they deserve this then. Yeah, you guys deserve that. Those are great comments. All right, so folks, if you've really enjoyed this today, please give us like a celebrate or a love reaction. Let us know you really enjoyed it, and let us know what resonated with you. I do see a comment here from Mika Livingston. She's manager of talent acquisition, Allied Health. She says, it definitely brought us out from behind our desk to the forefront. COVID-19 has allowed us to see what's in the mirror in order to correct or fix. Yeah, nice thought. Okay, one last thing to finish this up. I'm just very curious here. My curiosity is taking me over here. Would you rather, where is it? Would you rather, no, I didn't want to do would you rather. I want you to ask you this. What advice would you appreciate from a happy and successful 80-year-old?
Wow, that's a tough one.
That is a tough one.
I'll give you
Well,
an
as I
easier
said
one if you
earlier,
want.
I have kids at home, three teenagers, and I would say if I was asking for advice, it would really be about that balance of life in general, what's important, and just learning from, if I could learn from their experience, what advice would they give me to make sure that I was focused on the right things and prioritizing. So love to learn from people that have been there, done that.
Oh, I like that. That's a good one.
Yeah, I agree. I think if there was a happy, healthy 80-year-old out there and they said, you can get through this, right? This too shall pass. And, we're strong enough as people and as a community to work together, but to also, back to Stacy's point, to balance your life appropriately. Things can happen in a moment. You can lose loved ones, you can lose, people at work, you could lose family members, but just to kind of really keep yourself balanced and appreciate what you have when you have it. Not being able to spend time with parents and family members, I think has really just showed you that what really matters in your life. And I think someone who's lived a full life and that's happy and healthy, that's what they would tell us, to appreciate what you have and not always just look ahead, but look at what you have right here and right now.
I love it. That's great. Yeah. Anything you want to add before we close out? We're closing out time here.
Thanks for the opportunity just to
chat.
Yeah,
it's good to see you guys. It's been forever.
It's great to meet everybody. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Yeah, thank you as well. Oh, by the way, Leah says hello. She says thanks for joining us today to all of you. So very good.
Oh.
Yeah, Leah Ramsey. All right, so thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, you guys were amazing today. I'd love to have you guys back. Will you be willing to come back on the show one day if I invite you back?
Absolutely.
Okay,
yes.
Well, I'm going to invite you back then. All right, very good. Right. So let's say bye to everyone. Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining us today.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, you guys stay on for 1 second, and then I'm gonna when I see us waving our hands, I'll know it's okay to stop the transmission. Otherwise, it'll stop in the middle of our talking here.
Okay.
A little bit of a delay. You guys were fantastic today. Fantastic 3.
Thank you.
I guess I would be 4, right? Did I make 4? We would be fantastic.
Yeah, you got to say 4.
That's right. You always have to have a good MC.
Yeah, I couldn't do it without you.
Wouldn't go. It won't flow.
And those are